Welcome to the JAMODI podcast, where we interview coaches and leaders to find out not just what they do, but how they do what they do. Becoming the best version of ourselves is JAMODI, just a matter of doing it. What's one thing that makes your program different?
So we, and I think with the Suns and all that, made it really, popular this end of the last year. Like, we call people up, we don't call them out. We are not a group that's going to be, cussers, screamers, hollowers. What we're going to do is, we're going to be hard on you. And my biggest thing is we're going to be demanding without being demeaning.
Right.
And especially in today's kids, when you start being demeaning to them and they check out.
Yeah.
And so we call them up. It's one of those things that it's hard because it's not our natural instinct.
Right.
Our natural instinct is to yell at people, especially, when I look at it as being a dad and, and really you're just turning around and being a father figure to these kids on the floor. How would I want my son to be treated? How would I want to be treated? If I was a player, and would I want to play for myself as a coach? And so we have a high standard in what we do. But at the same time, we're not going to demean you at all. And I think that it helps go back to the culture aspect of it, of why we do what we do, and why we do it every day.
Yeah, that's powerful. I think I get to ask coaches quite a bit, what's one thing that you would do differently? And I love hearing, especially from older coaches that have I'm only in my year 15, so it hasn't been that. I'm still making tons of mistakes and learning every day, but
every day
already. So I got to play for basically Bobby Knight's first assistant and Dave Bliss. And there's a part of the way that he communicated and taught that was a lot like Bobby Knight, just the harshness of it.
Yeah.
And so when I started coaching, that was really my style. Like I kind of was proud of that. And
right.
So like one thing, there's been two things in my life that have just been game changers. One is, 9 years ago when I was 30 was recommitting my life to Christ, like huge shift in how I coached and talked to players. Another was directing for PGC, because they are right in line with that. And so basically my first PGC session, I got just tons of feedback of you're demeaning, you're belittling, there's no relationship. And so those two things, I would love to go back in time. One, apologize to all of those teams and all those kids that it was just so transactional, not transformational in any way.
Right.
And everything that you're saying is that transformational type of coaching where those kids they're not always going to be happy and they're not always going to love you, but they're going to invite you to their wedding.
Yes.
And they're going to remember those lessons for sure.
Well, and that's one of the things too that sets us apart. And I know most coaches do this, but like you said, it's just the way you do it. We just tell them the truth. We're not going to beat around the bush on things. And I think people get away from that. They want to say, like, I maybe tiptoe around, or if they say it, they just want to say it straight up and not again, that's a demeaning way, instead of, because it takes a different aspect of you to be able to say it without being demeaning. Yeah. Because if you don't think that way, it's really hard to coach that way.
Yeah.
And so, we tell them the truth, and sometimes they get defensive in that. And when we talk about it, but again, it's just I look at it as it's a growing aspect. They've learned one way, or they've seen one way. And so when you tell them the truth and they get defensive, well, there's a reason why. And so now we go back again to the why question is, and without knowing them, then you don't know how to coach them, because you can't coach every kid the same. And so that's a lot of what we do to get into is talking to them on a daily basis and really getting to know who they are.
Yeah, one thing we always ask, do you guys want truth or do you want harmony? And I think because deep down, they've been given a lot of harmony over the years.
Yes.
And any truth that they've gotten has been negative. So of course, coach, give me harmony, which means everything's fine. What you're doing is great. Nothing to change. Don't get uncomfortable. But then if we can live in a world of, we are going to tell each other the truth, but we understand that that's coming from love and it's coming from the right place, golly, you can get a lot accomplished that way.
Oh, absolutely. And, and I think again, these kids nowadays talk at each other. It's one of those things where instead of being able to encourage and talk with each other or to each other, they talk at each other. And so teaching them that aspect of that doesn't help. And so when you're asking them to communicate, not just on the floor, but when they start doing that and they learn how to do that, then it's a completely different ballgame.
Yeah. And giving them opportunities to practice that.
Absolutely.
A lot of coaches will say, we got to communicate better.
Yeah.
I want my teams to talk better. But then as coaches, we dominate the conversation 99% of the time. So how are they going to learn? Except for us giving them opportunities, even if it's after a drill, guys get together with one partner, 20 seconds each, give feedback to what you saw and teach them how to be active listeners.
Yeah, absolutely. And I love what Coach Show talks about, the communication circles. And we do that. We'll end practice with communication circles of being able just to talk and communicate. And again, like you said, probably 95% of coaches are going to be saying, well, I wish my team communicate better. But yet, what are we teaching them? Or how are we teaching that? And that's, like you said, that's a great way of, after drills, go in there, talk to them, get them a chance, because we love to dominate. We love to talk. And don't
everything we have to say is so important. Everything we have to say.
And then after about 7 seconds, they tuned us out. So it's like, let's just go on to something else.
And another point. Another point.
And they're thinking about, what am I eating after, when I'm going home or whatever? What's my girlfriend doing or something? Everything
that you've said is really good. But what's inspiring is the fact that you actually do it. Because there's so many great ideas, great concepts. But when you actually have to put it into practice, because it's time, those are all time units that you have to figure out, and you're going to give 30 seconds for them to talk. Well, that's 30 seconds that you can't do shell drill anymore.
Right.
And, or if you do that, and, there's a whole Tyler Costin with PGC can't stand shell drill. So don't do, but, it's impressive that you work all those things into it.
Well, and I think, again, it just goes back into, what do we emphasize? Because it's what you emphasize is what you get. And so if we want to emphasize communication, then you've got to plan it. And again, I'll go back to Buzz. Buzz talks about communication with this generation, that, they're the generation that can communicate and has the most communications, but they can't talk to each other. So they all can, if they're sitting in a room, they would rather text each other or Snapchat each other or whatever than, hey, let's put the phones down and talk face to face. And that's one of the things where, again, it's a learning experience. Like we do, we'll do this, and we'll go to a tournament, and we'll stay at I like doing a lake house, if we can do a lake house, or a big Airbnb or whatever we can do, and we have it where there's no cell phones. And so the kids are crazy because they're thinking, I got to, we'll give them a little bit of time, but it's like, hey, no, this is, not only are we playing, but at the same time, this is a chance for us to be able to bond together. And it's just one of those bonding events, and it's by the end of the weekend, it's fun because you get to talk. We'll have sessions of things that kids get to communicate and be able to open up. And, again, it's all about relationships, and that's what we're trying to build.
Thank you for checking out today's episode. Please take a moment to subscribe to this podcast, share it with your fellow coaches, and find us on social media for what's coming up next on the JAMODI podcast. It's just a matter of doing it.